Hi guys, welcome to Extra Talk. We have two very special guests today. We have Kasper and we have another Kasper, but Kasper van Linde. Hi guys, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
So the reason we invited you guys, obviously, is because of the recent signing of Daramy, Mohamed Daramy, who came from Copenhagen. It's nice to see two people from Denmark that want to come and just share their opinion about the player. Now, one of you is, of course, a very big fan of Copenhagen, and the other one is a very big fan of Nordsjælland. And yesterday, just before we start, we tweeted about inviting Kasper van Linde of Nordsjælland, and then we got so many angry Copenhagen fans that we arranged, of course, Kasper to come in as well. So thank you for making it very quickly for us that we can arrange to have you on the Zoom as well. Okay, guys, so we have to talk about Daramy, but before we start, the thing that we always do when we have new guests, we want to know who you guys are. So basically, just a short, briefly introduction, how you guys became a football fan, and why do you support the teams you guys support? So I will go with Kasper first.
Yes, my name is Kasper. I got my own media called Kvartibold in Denmark. It's an Copenhagen media. I'm almost born on stadium. My father was a Danish champion with Copenhagen in 1969, and I was more or less born at the stadium. And I'm a 24/7 fan of Copenhagen.
Actually, you were fans since your birth, basically.
Basically before, but yes, you can say that.
Oh, that's wonderful, wonderful.
I have been on the stadium with the diaper and everything from 0 years. Yes.
Awesome. That's awesome. How about you, Kasper van Linde?
Yeah, so it's a similar story. My father's not the Danish champion though, but I mean, strong parent interests within football, and so I'm half English, so I was always brought to Man United when I was a kid. So over time, I got into Danish football as well. But for many years, my passion was exclusively English football.
Okay, great. And you guys, apart from, of course, following your own club intensively, like 24/7 basically, and of course, Kasper van Linde, you said Manchester United as well. Do you guys follow the league in general as well, or you guys are very much fixated only at your club or the clubs that you guys love?
I'm supporting my own club, and that's the most important thing for me. But supporting your own club, you have to know a little bit about the other clubs. So I follow the Danish league. I have no favorite teams in the world, but I am only supporting Copenhagen.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and from my end, it's slightly different. So I've been a coach for many years. And from that background, I really do appreciate watching the different styles of football. So I love FC Nordsjælland, but I definitely take an interest in the full league and actually also the first division. On the personal side, I now have 2 small kids. So whereas earlier I watched, let's say, 4 games a week, I'm probably now down to 2. Yeah. But I still do my best to follow the league intensively. And I think a good example is if there's something I don't understand about the FC Copenhagen team, I might pick up the phone and call Kasper, or I might just sit down and watch all the games or all the goals scored against FC Copenhagen to get my own view on what's wrong or what's going well.
Yes. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the coaching that you mentioned? What kind of coaching?
Yeah, so it's you could say it was a third division team in Denmark under 19s where we practiced like 4 days a week and a match as well. So I did that for like 10 years in like under 17s, under 19s level.
Well, that's great. That means also you're certified? You have a certificate?
Yes, I'm a UEFA licensed coach.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. And before we start, just for the viewers also to understand, so you gave it away a little bit. You guys know each other already, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And how did it start? How did you guys met the first time? You guys remember?
Yes, but we haven't actually met in real life. We are what's called Twitter lovers because we support different teams. But we wrote with each other a lot on Twitter, and now it's a phone call once or twice a week, so we can keep up with the other teams and discuss football in a okay level.
So basically, rivals can be friends.
Yeah, definitely.
In this, yes, of course.
Okay, good. All right, guys, let's move on to the hot topic, basically. Daramy, the signing. Before we start talking about the player itself, I just want your opinion, your general opinion about when the news came out. What was your thought about that he signed with Ajax? Who wants to go first?
I can start. I cried. No, but it's a very good player. But the rumor said that he was going to play at I don't know if you call it Club Brugge in Dutch. And the Copenhagen fans were not so thrilled about it because we lots of us like to see Brugge as our similar club like as us, but Ajax is a little bit more sexy when you have to deliver a guy like Daramy. So obviously it was pretty okay when it was your club instead.
Interesting. Can I ask a question about that? So basically what you're saying is that Club Brugge is like perceived as a similar level as Copenhagen, but Ajax is seen as a better club for a young player as Daramy.
In 2016, we beat Club Brugge with 4-0 in Parken, our stadium. And I know that they have managed a lot since that. So basically, they are a lot better than us right now. But in our mindset, we are a lot more similar. But Ajax, we are still seeing Ajax as the next level before the big clubs. Yes.
Exactly. Sorry, Kasper, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, I think it's a very similar impression I have that FC Copenhagen, you can say, is the flagship in Danish football, has at least been for a lot of years in Denmark, right? So it hurts quite a bit when the biggest, Daramy was taken out for the Danish national team today. To see him go to a medium club in Belgium is a bit tough, I would say, to watch, right? So I think it fits the bill a lot better to be going to Ajax, where you can say it is for sure a bigger club.
Yeah. I want to stretch this conversation a little bit because we're basically all three of us. We're in a similar case, basically. I mean, okay, we can see Ajax a little bit higher, but we also have sooner or later our best players leave, and you guys have that as well with your own clubs. How do you guys? We get a lot of questions also from like the fans that support the really big teams. How can we be fans of a club that cannot really stay with the big teams, because you can never compete at a very, very high level. So what do you guys say to such fans when they come to you and say those things to you?
I can start here. Yeah, so I think the fundamental way that FC Nordsjælland is built very much around being a satellite club. I mean, it's a club that is owned by an African company, right? It's the first club in the world where an African company bought a European football team. So I think it's very much the purpose is to make sure that African players can come through the system. So I think if that is the case, then it would also be weird if it stopped with Denmark, right? Because Denmark is just Denmark. So I think in that sense, it is very natural that talents, they should move on. And we see it with Danish players as well, right? I don't know if you know Mikkel Damsgaard and Andreas Skov Olsen. They also now play at a much higher level. So for me, it's a lot more about the development. And I completely live with not winning a championship, let's say every 5 years or every 10 years for that sake, because that's not what football is about for me. It's a lot more about the bigger picture. And this is where I think FC Nordsjælland is really doing a good job.
Did the identity of Nordsjælland change after it was bought up by the African company, or was it always like this?
It's for sure changed. So you can say I would stress it a bit here that FC Nordsjælland was probably the best when it came to talent development back in 2016, but we became even better. So you can say they simply just amplified the football club and made sure that we had more legs to stand on now with the African Academy as well.
And apart from you, the general consensus among the fans of Nordsjælland, they're all okay with it?
It took a bit of time, right? We even changed the logo, the stadium name. but I would say we are a small club, right? We played yesterday night. Those 3,500 people at the stadium, right? So there's not a lot of people you can piss off. So I would say the people that was there before, they are still there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, clear. Kasper, what about you?
It's pretty much the same, maybe a little bit higher level because we are the biggest club in Denmark. But I think that when you are a Copenhagen fan, you adapt with the situation. That we know when players get in a higher level for us, and maybe we play EuroLeague, Champions League, this year Conference League, hopefully, then we know that the players who are good, they grow out of our club and see Ajax or something like that as next level. And I think it's just a thing that we accept it. And I don't hear that question a lot because I think it's just the way it is. We know we are not Real Madrid or Barcelona or something. We know where we are and who we are.
Good. Thanks. One more question before we jump into the profile of Daramy. The price of Daramy, basically, because we signed Daramy for what I could read, 12 million, which with variables could lead up to 13 million. Do you guys think this is a fair price for Daramy, or do you guys maybe Ajax overpaid? Because there is some media, Dutch media, saying that maybe we paid a little bit too much for him.
It's a very good question because you can see it in two ways. You can see Daramy, the last 10 or 15 games, he has been magnificent and he has been out of the world, the best player in the Super League, Danish Super League. But before that, he was 16 when he has his debut. And it has been a lot of games where he did not improve like we wanted to. So basically, you buy him now. It's good for you because I think there's only one way for him, and that's up from now. And I'm not sure that you could afford him next summer, maybe.
All right. Do you?
Yeah, I think it's a very similar interpretation that I have. I mean, should you buy Bitcoin now at $50,000, right? Well, it depends on how his development will be going forward, right? So I think there's no doubt. I mean, he is expensive now because he's had, as Kasper said, 6-7 brilliant games in a row, had a fantastic under-21s championship. Your own plan went a bit to the trash bin. And I mean, you needed a left winger, right? So in that sense, sometimes you get pressured out. Maybe the price was 1 or 2 million euro too high. Very tough to assess. I would say if you index it to what else has been sold in the Danish Superliga this year, I think it's just fairly reasonable.
I think so too.
And another thing is that in March or April, Daramy were told that he could leave the club from about 8 to 10 million euros this summer. But suddenly he played, as Kasper told, an under-21 tournament as one of the best players. And after that, he has improved a lot. And it's normal that the price get a little bit higher then.
Yeah, I did like a very, very small. I mean, I know they're not similar players, but I checked it with how much Kamaldeen went away for. I checked with Kudus that we bought a few years back. You know, it's more or less the same price. I mean, I know for Kudus we bought him for 9 million, but we have also Nortjylland has 15% for a resale. So it's basically almost the same, all of them. All right, let's dive into Daramy, the player itself. A little bit of profile. Can you tell us a little bit more about the player, the background of the player, and how he evolved? How come he just exploded this season like he did? And what are his strengths and weaknesses according to you guys?
Okay, I can start. Daramy come to Copenhagen in around he was 16. He lived with his mom and his brothers and sisters in a small apartment, and he was taking the bus to go to train at the Tian, as it's called. And actually, when Copenhagen wanted him to train a little bit more, he had to ask his mom if it was okay because he picked up his brothers and sisters. So it's a very good story, and Daramy's background is not like a rich kid or something, but a hardworking family just outside Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Then he came at the A team at around 16 and played on and off, but have some problems. A about finishing things. He was okay sometimes and bad sometimes. And at that time, we played another system where Daramy was working a lot in the defensive, and that was a bit of a problem when he wanted to attack. So he had some problems, but we have a new coach in October because Ståle Soba was fired, and we play now another offensive system, and it suits Daramy very well. And he's fast, he's brilliant one-to-one, his good connections with the teammates. The only thing is that he can become a more clinical finisher. That is the only thing I think you have to learn him, because otherwise he got the whole package.
All right.
Yeah, so if I should add a bit to that, I think as when you're brought into the game when you're 16, right, you of course only play bits and pieces. And I think Kasper has a very strong point when it comes to the system that he played. He played a very structured 4-4-2 with as many defensive commitments as offensive, right? When you have a player like that, it's of course extremely hard for a winger to really capitalize in the moment. And therefore, you could say his first 2 seasons, even though you could see his talent was great, it really didn't move the right way. So it was first really when, as Kasper said, the coach changed, the system became more offensive as a general term, that it really changed. But even that, in last season, he only played 55 minutes per game, which is not a lot, right? If you are looking at a player that should be a star and all that, so it really also tells something about a slightly younger player profile and maybe also physique, right? Because he definitely has all the attributes that Kasper says, like one-on-ones, quick mind, quick in pace and everything, right? He's really, in that sense, he's fairly complete. But I mean, there's still a good reason that he only played 55 minutes last year, right? So, and that is for sure that it is ups and downs with Daramy as well, as for many other young players.
Yes, I have a few questions. Go ahead. Yes.
I also see the club train 2 or 3 times a week, and for the last 2 years, I can see that Daramy was better than all the others. I just couldn't see it when he played games because he was a little bit immature in this game. That was just the point.
Well, it reminds me actually that you're saying that. It reminds me back when Zlatan came to Ajax, exactly the same. It took like more than a year before we started seeing the real Zlatan. And everybody was saying, like, if you see Zlatan on the training ground at Ajax, he was by far the best player. But it never really showcased in the match. It took a very long time. But then when he exploded, then there was no stopping him, and then Juventus came, etc. Okay, so coming back
to exactly what you say about Daramy.
Daramy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. I have a few questions. You guys made some very interesting points. So I will start with Kasper about you. Actually, very interesting also for the viewers. You guys mentioned it to me yesterday. I also tweeted about it, or we tweeted about it. There is a 4-episode series about Daramy, about how he came along a little bit, a bit of a portrait. More personal, not very much about football, but more about personal stuff. It's very nice to see what kind of person he is and how he was raised. I think it's a very nice thing for viewers that are interested to watch. They can also watch it with the subtitles, but then they have to use a desktop or laptop, as you guys mentioned to me, and not the mobile device. So they can look it up themselves and they can have a look. One of the things that struck me, because I watched the first 3 episodes, is that he's the oldest one of the family, right? He has only sisters, and he's the oldest one, and he has to take care of them when his mother went to work. So his mother was not always around, and she had to also do night shifts sometimes. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's totally correct, but I know that he was supporting the family by taking care of the brothers and sisters. But he has a very, very strong family, and the mother has been there for the kids. But she also had to work a lot because they have to afford to stay in Denmark, and that Daramy can train and do his football. Yes.
Yeah, and also one of the other things that I realized is he's quite, I don't know, because this was 2 years ago, the series, so now he matured a little bit, of course. Is he still kind of a shy type of person?
From 2 years ago, you couldn't tell something because he was not saying anything and he was very shy. But I think after the good performances, you can feel that he's more secure in himself, and then you can show the real Daramy. And he's funny, he's a cool person, and he's always willing to sign an autograph to the kids and take a picture and everything. He's just one hell of a guy.
He seems like also a very down-to-earth kind of a player or person.
Totally. He's like all the other youngsters with Instagram and sunglasses and everything, but he's down to earth, cool, and you don't see any problem with him.
Yeah. So my question to both of you, right? Because we're talking a little bit about what kind of person he is. Do you guys think he's ready to make a step abroad, to go to a different country? I mean, I know the Netherlands is not that different than Denmark, and usually Danish players, they do very well at in general in the Netherlands. Do you guys think he's ready as a person, looking at his character, to go already and start playing for Ajax?
I can start. I don't know him at all as a person, right?
Okay.
So I think for me, giving a good 5% guess on this wouldn't be worth it, right? So I can just say, in general, young Danes have for many years struggled. But I think the main reason they've struggled is because their quality hasn't been high enough. And I think, in general, Daramy has what it takes when it comes to become a really, really strong footballer internationally. So when it comes to the football attributes, that's the only thing I can assess him on. And there, I think he has the package.
I think he's going to Ajax right now, and I think that's a good step because your culture is more similar with the Danish culture, and I don't think it will be any kind of problem because you are used to having young talents in your club, so you know how to do with the talent. So I don't think it's a problem at all.
All right.
And there's quite a few Danes as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Victor Jensen played that last season for you. So, all right. Kasper, you wanted to say something?
More or less just that it's a big wish for the player to play at Ajax. And that's the first ground rule when you have to adapt to a new country and a new club, that it's a personal wish to play there. So yeah. I think already there, it's a good start.
Good, very good. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what kind of person he is. Let's talk a little bit about what you guys talked about, the system. He had a different coach. He was playing a different system. You mentioned 4-4-2. Was he playing up front or was he playing on the wing at that time?
It was almost every time he played like left wing or right wing. But he was very... he had very many different things he had to do in the defensive. Right now he plays as a left wing in more like your system 4-3-3, and I think it suits him much better.
Okay. Yes. So actually, if you look at his profile in FC Copenhagen, he actually has most games on his right wing. And I read a few articles because he was on the way to Milan not so long time ago. And there, a lot of the player portraits, because it was made a bit older, or a bit long time ago, said that he was a right winger. But I'm completely with Kasper now. He looks like a left winger the most, and his collaboration with the left back in FC Copenhagen is pretty decent, I must say.
Good. Also, so now actually it makes sense a little bit as well. I mean, asking a young player to play 4-4-2 on the wing, doing so much defensive work, it's maybe a little bit too much, you know? But now he can be more offensive-minded. Can I say that? You know, on the 4-3-3.
Definitely.
Yes, and you can also say that he knows how to defend now because it was 2 very good seasons for him to develop the defensive skills. So I think you got a more complete player now because he played 2 years with a lot of defensive things. Yes.
Yeah. So Kasper van Linde, I want to talk to you about a little bit more from your side. If you have to say his things he has to improve, weaknesses. I mean, he's not the finished product. We know that. He's very young. It would be strange if he was. So he's coming to Ajax. A couple of things he has to work on. What would you say?
So I think one of the main things that there's a very big gap or distance between his highest level and his lowest level, right? Okay. So he's a player with not a lot of consistency. And I think a lot of that is also that FC Copenhagen as a team hasn't had a lot of consistency either. They've been really good at times and they've been absolutely horrible at other times, right? So in that sense, if you are a young player, you're not going to be the one leading that, right? So that is for sure one of the things. Secondly, I think he needs to show now over a longer period that he can be as involved in winning the games as he is now, because for a long time he's just been waiting out on the side for maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes. But it seems like the last 7-8 games he's really had it a lot, right? They keep playing him. And then I think the clinical finishing that Kasper was referring to earlier is definitely also a point where he has a bit more to do. So I would say that's his 3 most important areas.
What about his aerial ability?
Yeah, so I don't think he will ever get aerial ability, right? It's like, so he's not great. He's I think I was just looking at his height, and I don't know if Wikipedia is correct, but he's 180, right? So he will never play a role when it comes to headers or anything like that. That's at least my opinion, Kasper. I don't know if you see that completely differently.
I am totally. You're totally right. Totally right. Yes.
All right. Okay. So Kasper, for you, what's his like? You mentioned it a bit already, but his main strength as a player up front. What does he bring to this Ajax, in your view?
For me, it's the 1-against-1. He's so fast with the ball, and actually now we talked about his position in last weekend's game. We had to bring him on the right side sometimes in the first half because we have only played in left side for the first 25 minutes. So I can only say that his 1-to-1 is in Danish league second to none right now, and he's doing exactly what he wants with the defenders right now. I think they are still looking for the coffee shop or something after the weekend's match.
If I can back you up right there, Kasper, with a bit of data, I just heard another Danish podcast going in, and he has the most successful dribbles this season. Of course, it's only 6 games in, right? But he has twice as many as number 3. Just to again really say how much better is he right now when it comes to dribbles than the next, right? So I must say Kasper is completely right when it comes to the 1-versus-1. I think to add on what Kasper's saying, he's also number 1 when it comes to touches in the box. And that also is really, when you look at a player, because some players, they like to dribble, but only with a very wide distance, right? But Daramy likes to bring his competitors very close to him, which for sure gives him an advantage that he moves very well in small spaces. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
totally.
Okay, so guys, before the viewers get angry with me, they send in a couple of questions, so we have to go over them. I just selected 3 questions, which I think are interesting also to discuss. The first question I want to ask you guys is, one of the questions that came in is he ready to have a direct impact at Ajax already? Because he's, of course, a young player. And you guys mentioned before he plays on the left wing. Well, we have a player on the left wing, and that's Tadic. So how do you guys see that?
If I start, I see that he's a different player than Tadic. But I think if he can take his self-confidence, I can't see why he cannot have an impact from day one. But he can also play as a right winger. So I think that I'm not sure, but I think that he can have an impact from day one. Yes.
Yeah, I think at least he will get his chances because he offers something completely different than Tadic, right? Tadic is a smart mind and a beautiful foot, right? Both for passing and for shooting. So where you can say Daramy is pace and dribblings, and in that sense he will offer Ajax an alternative. And I actually listened in on your episode where you talked about missing out on Kamaldeen, right? And you also explained this. You have Haller up front, you have Tadic on the left, now you have Berghus on the right. So it's only 1 out of 3 players who have speed, right? So in that sense, it will give you tactical flexibility, I think is fair to say.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
very good point. Yes.
Yeah, there is another question which also I will kind of put it into my question as well. So the question that came in, the other question is, can Daramy play as a number 9, so as a central striker? And the reason I want to add it to my question as well is because we're having some problems at Ajax currently with our most expensive signing, which is Haller. And people are starting to question whether we can have maybe Daramy play there, or maybe if Daramy goes to the left wing, maybe Tadic would be an option. But in general, also, Kasper, for you, maybe because you have been following Daramy for quite some time, in the youth and coming up to his current self, where he is right now, did he play always on the wing, always offensive, or did he play on different positions?
He had played as a striker, but that was in 4-4-2. I have some problems seeing him play as number 9 in 4-3-3. I think that your hopes is going to be on Tadic. I don't see Daramy play as number 9 at all.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, I mean, one of the things we didn't discuss with the weaknesses, right? We don't see it with FC Copenhagen, but I don't expect him to be very good at playing with his back towards the opponent's goal.
No,
because he doesn't have the physique in that way, and that's very often a prerequisite for a striker, right? Yeah. So I would be a bit concerned if that was the way to go.
All right, clear. Okay, so one more question then, and the other question is, what would be, I mean, if you can compare him to any other player, international player or any other player that we know about, who would you compare Daramy to?
It's always difficult to compare players because Daramy is much his own, but not one-to-one. But basically, it's okay to compare him with Kamaldeen. Kamaldeen is a little bit better in counter-attacking, and Daramy is a little bit better one-to-one if he's close to his opponent. But they have some similar things. So Kamaldeen, also because you know Kamaldeen, I would say would be okay to compare Daramy with.
I'm with you all the way, Kasper. And if you want an international name, you can bring in Doku from Belgium, right? That also plays in Rennes. Similar, like way towards the game, likes to attack, likes to bring his speed, likes to bring his opponents close to him, likes to dribble. I mean, it could be an alternative to Kamaldeen for sure.
Good, you guys brought up Kamaldeen. Actually, I wanted to go there as well with you guys. So nice bridge, basically. So if we compare Kamaldeen to Daramy, right? Because while we're doing this, look, let's be honest, everybody knows Ajax was chasing Kamaldeen since January, even before, I think. We wanted to sign Kamaldeen in January, but that didn't go through. So we were chasing him, and then at the end, it didn't go through. We were very close, but he chose to go to Rennes. Now we get Daramy. So for us as fans, can you explain to us what the differences are? Who's better at what? There are a lot of different opinions. I saw also on Twitter, some people, a lot of Copenhagen fans will favor, of course, Daramy, but there are other people that favor Kamaldeen. So how do you guys view that?
I can start.
Yeah, you start.
It's okay. If I can be a little bit fresh here, I think the only ones who favor Daramy right now is FC Copenhagen fans. To be completely honest, I think everything that's shown in the Superliga, like the highest top level, everything I think points a little bit more towards Kamaldeen, not by a mile and not by a lot, but just by a little bit. So I think in that way, small favor in advantage of Kamaldeen. And I think there's also a good reason why Ajax wanted Kamaldeen first, right? So I think that also tells the story, and maybe also the price was a bit higher. Where they're then a bit different, you can say, is that Kamaldeen has maybe 5-10% more speed, right? And it's very, very important to get these last 5-10%, because what you get with Kamaldeen is you get a player who can run with the ball from his own half and no one can catch him with the ball all the way to the goal, right? You don't get that necessarily with Daramy. What you then get as the alternative is, we talked about it before, right? But this dribbling in the telephone box attribute, which is very nice to have as well. So in that sense, I would say Kamaldeen, if you really boil it down, Kamaldeen is just a bit more of a physical presence kind of player. He's smaller, but even up against FC Copenhagen's absolutely brilliant header, Victor Nelson, sorry. I should know because he comes from my club. He even won the duels, right? And he's 174. I guess the defender is 190 or something like that, right? So it's just a slightly different package.
I for my sake, I totally agree with Kasper on the things he mentioned. But another thing you might be aware of is that Daramy, for example, has played an quarterfinal in EuroLeague against Manchester United. So he had tried the pressure. We have a lot of spectators in Copenhagen, 20,000 on stadium and more. So in that way, you get a little bit more from Daramy, not the player, but the things around him, the quarterfinal, the spectators, and the pressure in the spectators put on a player in Copenhagen.
Yeah. So look, one of the arguments you guys brought up about why Kamaldeen is better, and it's very clear, is he has more pace. He has more use and more efficient use, let me put it that way, of the space around him. But if Ajax, most of the time also in the Eredivisie, or when we play weaker opponents, we play in crowded areas or tight spaces. Who is better in that case, in your opinion?
I think we have to fight about that, Kasper and me. I think the way you put it now, and the way you say that Ajax play, I will say that Daramy will fit perfectly in your team, because that's the way things are from Copenhagen all the time. We meet not Kasper's team, but the other teams are pretty defensive almost when they play at our stadium, and Daramy were very good to attack on these kind of defenses. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough. I think again, it's a very close call, right? I think it's actually for the entire discussion, I think it's not really that important who's the best right now, right? No. It's a matter of who has the most talent. And I think that is, of course, extremely tough to assess. Yes. Because at least I'm not skilled in that discipline. But I think when you compare them 1-to-1 at current level, I would say small advantage Kamaldeen. If you then want to make the premises that it's about the tight areas on the left-hand side, I can definitely buy into that Daramy has his strengths over Kamaldeen as well. I think they do it slightly different, right? Daramy likes to dribble, do double step overs and move the ball quick. Kamaldeen likes to stand completely still, make sure that the opponent stands completely still, and then he just runs past them.
Like Neymar does.
Yes.
Okay. Two more points about the comparison that I also want to highlight, because I'm just curious, and I think other viewers might want to hear this as well. Defensive, we talked about this. Because of the 4-4-2, Daramy learned also to play defensively. Would you say that Daramy is a little bit further in terms of defensive work than Kamaldeen, or am I off here?
You're completely right. I mean, in FC Nordsjælland, in general, the wingers do not defend. So, I mean, we've not seen him defending. He does a little bit of pressing around the areas, right? But he doesn't really play an important role. And I mean, in a lot of ways, we've let him go a little bit in the pressure situations, move him away from the pressure to have more room to run in. So I think it's a very fair assumption that he's definitely more skilled with 2 years of Scandinavian defensive 4-4-2. And then on top, I think he's just, without knowing, right? But I assume that if you are skilled in FC Copenhagen from your 0 to your 19, then you'll be better all round in understanding football. I assume they've been matched at a higher level all the way through than what you can match a player at Right to Dream in Ghana.
Yeah. Kasper, do you want to add something to that?
No, I totally agree about the things that Daramy learned it the hard way. 2 years with a lot of defensive work. He's not a perfect defensive player, but I don't think you want to use him that way. So I don't think it's a problem.
Well, maybe he'll have Tagliafico behind him, so that will be fine. So one more thing, we talked about it as well, but I just want to be sure. Is that gap very big in terms of end product? So attacking end product, we talked about Daramy is very inconsistent still a little bit. And how about Kamaldeen? How do we compare this to each other?
So I would say Kamaldeen, I think it's a weakness for both of them, right?
Yeah.
but Kamaldeen finished last season extremely strong. So I cannot remember the exact amount of goals, but I would say he scored like 6-7 goals in the last 10 games. Scored a lot of very easy goals because he stopped doing these fancy tricks, but he just did the easy thing. If he would continue to do that, then I think he will be a fairly clinical finisher. But for the 1.5 year we had him, he wasn't, as a total note, a clinical finisher. Does that make sense?
Yes, and to support that, you can say that it's a little bit the same around Daramy. In the new season here, he has doing what he wants, but it's still a place where he can improve a lot. But right now he's at his highest, and right now it's easy for him to attack the goal in many positions. And he had made both goals and assists in the new season. Pretty okay, yes.
All right, cool. So icing on the cake, we're going to finish this podcast, this video, with a comparison between Antony and Daramy. And we need to explain it a little bit to our viewers. So we asked you guys to come up, and then maybe I will give it up to you so you guys can explain what you guys did for the comparison. Maybe that's better because you guys did it. So please go ahead.
Sure. So I think let's start with the positives here, right? So we are a small football community in Denmark. So that means that we actually, even though we are rivals in our daily life, we use each other's resources a lot. And Kasper has a podcast about FC Copenhagen. And in relation to that, he has a very skilled data analytic called Henrik 1000. Did I say that correctly, Kasper?
No, Henrik Tustop, but
Tustop. Okay, sorry. Tustop.
No problem.
And yeah, so we use each other and we help each other out on these data things, and we love to nerd with it, even though, I mean, we do it for fun, right? So as I don't watch a lot of Dutch football, what we did was I said, okay, fine, let's look at the right winger from last year. Because I didn't think it made sense to compare with Tadic, since he's fundamentally a different player. So I just said, let's look at them up against each other and then see where the different players are strong. So you will share this tomorrow on your Twitter profile or the day after?
No, we will upload this tomorrow. So don't mention it to the viewers yet, but we will tweet it soon, yes.
Okay, perfect.
It's okay.
Okay, so just back at it again.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, so what we did was we just looked at the players up against each other, and we used the season. We only used this, the current season, so the 6 games now. So it's, again, a bit distorted data up against Antony's last season. And what we can see is that actually Daramy has more than twice the amount of dribbles per 90 minutes. He has 30% more successful dribbles than Antony last season. So Antony comes in around 55% and Daramy comes in around 70%. He has more progressive runs, which is, again, also very important, how far you run with the ball and you progress the ball in general. He has, looks like maybe 3 times as many offensive duels as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of places where Daramy, at least you need to remember, of course, this comes from a league with a lower level.
Yeah.
But it's still very strong attributes up against a player that was the winger last year for you guys, right? Yeah. So I think it says something about the player style that Daramy has. Where you can then see that Antony is slightly ahead is that Antony has, looks like 0.4 assists per 90 minutes, which is very, very strong for last season. There, Daramy is only around the half. And then in general, Antony makes a lot of crosses. FC Copenhagen doesn't really play with crosses from that side as it is now. So Daramy has close to 0 crosses. So just to give like an idea on where Daramy is very strong and where Antony is playing his suits as well. Any follow-up questions on this specifically?
From my side, no. I mean, we will share, of course, as you mentioned, we will share the data on Twitter. And people can see it themselves. And of course, people have to realize that this data is a little bit different. So you cannot compare it one-on-one. But it's definitely a nice thing to see, you know? So it also gives you a little bit of taste about how Daramy is.
Definitely, definitely. And I also have one that you can share tomorrow around Daramy's last year up against this year, because I think what's important to see is that it's the same things he was good at last year as he's good at this year. He's just now better on all parameters. So his style of play is not different. His output is just higher. And that's what you want, right? Yeah. You want a player that progresses within the areas where he's strong. And I think that is where it's interesting to see, no matter if we talk Kamaldeen or Daramy, we don't know where the ceiling is. And you probably have 8 of these players already in Ajax where you don't know, are they going to be Frenkie de Jong or are they going to be someone you don't even remember anymore?
Exactly. Thanks. By the way, I want to thank you guys on behalf of the crew and on behalf of everyone for your time, but also the fact that you guys came up with it and you guys put effort into doing the comparison. We really appreciate it. I think also the viewers will be very thankful and grateful for it. Any final thoughts, any final things you want to maybe ask me or maybe say about this whole Daramy topic before we end?
I want to congratulate you and Ajax with a fantastic player and a fantastic person. I hope you will take very good care of him. And if you don't use him anymore, send him home immediately.
Will do.
I have one question. Because we know Kudus now, right, from the league very well, and we know Victor Jensen very well. How good are they in the league? Because we can compare Daramy up against these guys, right? Because they are all in the league. I know they play different positions, but just to get an indication of how good are they for Ajax?
Ooh, a good question. Honestly, I only saw Victor Jensen play in the preseason. And to me, he made a very good impression. It's like he matured, actually, compared to previously. But it's difficult to make the analysis because he previously was playing much more at Young Ajax, which is the youth. But I think he came back and he was very, he took a lot of initiative in the preseason. He was a little bit more aggressive, not aggressive in the fact that he made tackles, but aggressive in showcasing himself. He's still with the squad. I don't know, we only have a few days left for the transfer market. I would be surprised if he stays, to be honest, because we're quite clogged in terms of how many players we have on the midfield. So that's about Victor Jensen. Kudus, the only thing that I can say about Kudus is to be very unfortunate in terms of injuries. He picked up a very, very severe injury against Liverpool last year with his knee, and he's been out for almost the whole season. Then he ended a little bit the season a little bit okay-ish. He started the preseason very strong, but then he got injured again, I think against the Anderlecht game, ankle injury. And the problem now is we don't have a timeline. We don't know when he's coming back. And even the coach, Den Haag, said that it's taking longer than they expect. So honestly, a couple of fans are starting to worry because of, like being injury prone like that, which is strange because, please, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Kudus said that he hasn't picked up an injury like that before.
Correct. I've never seen him been injured.
Yeah, he's never been injured before. Yeah,
no.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate, honestly. So,
yeah. But you say with the few games that he has had, Kudus, how would you rate him there? Would you rate him?
Oh, honestly, I mean, look, he has to compete with Klaassen on the number 10 role. I tend to think he's better playing a little bit deeper. To be honest, that's where I would like to see him. But Den Haag has different ideas about that. Klaassen is a fan favorite. He's from Ajax, so it's a bit difficult. He has to compete against him. But in terms of technical ability, in terms of what he can do, produce, etc., there's no question he's the better player. I mean, he has shown a lot of great things already, but not consistently for a long term. And that's what we're waiting for, and that's what we want to see. Okay,
got it. Yeah, so I would rate Daramy's talent pool as approximately the same as Kudus's. That would be my, I know they play different positions, but that's my, at least 5 cents.
And does it mean that you rate Kamaldeen just above those two?
Yes.
All right.
For sure. But I see a potential, I know I might be shut down by Danish fans who see this. I see a potential Barcelona or Real Madrid player in 5 years in Kamaldeen.